Welcome to Friday, the 2nd of April. We thought that March was going to last forever. For some of us, it possibly felt like it did. A quick check-in on our economic snapshot for the week. You can see a bit more green and a little bit more red. The red over there in the stock markets, and even that green for the Australian, the ASX 200. All of the markets were fairly flat this week. The week-to-week comparison that we did, so I was tempted to actually leave the colours out of those. They were down but slightly, up but slightly, fairly flat for the week. The great news, of course, is the green sitting over in the coronavirus statistics. Now, why do we have these four statistics as our current measures, the economic indicators that I'm watching? It's really a cause and effect kind of direction. So coronavirus, what's happening with that in terms of cases, deaths, and the acceleration or deceleration of those is driving an awful lot of the economic activity and, frankly, the emotional uncertainty that we're all feeling right now. So it is impacting the markets. It's having a big cause and effect on the markets. The markets were up last week. They were flat this week. That, for mine, is a fairly direct response to some of this overwhelming stimulus package that the governments are throwing at the markets based on history, which is where I base a lot of the economic commentary in these snapshots. That is most likely to be, in terms of market sense, a dead cat bounce. In other words, it's not a proper bounce off the bottom, let's go, let's get up and walk away. The saying, impolite as it might be, is that even a dead cat will bounce. I think that's a short-term response to the stimulus packages as we realise that there's no magic bullet. There will be increased uncertainty and fear. And the reality is, even for those who are benefiting from these stimulus packages, it's not going to be as beneficial overall as a booming economy. And so I think we will see those markets drop further south in the coming 1 to 3 months. As we get further away from cause and more into effect, we get unemployment numbers. So unemployment shows up a bit later. It gets officially reported on a bit later. And then even further down the track, we get the GDP growth numbers. And those are the ones that officially tell us whether we've had a recession or not. But of course, by the time we get the GDP numbers to tell us we've had a recession, it's past tense. We will already have been in the recession. So we want to make sure that we're getting some of the lead indicators to tell us what's happening, and then also keep a track on some of those subsequent indicators. I mentioned that unemployment is something that generally gets reported a little bit later. In fact, I don't think we have official figures for the UK for February yet, and here we are now at the beginning of April. It can take a while for governments to collate that data. However, there are some preliminary numbers coming through. The US report weekly on new jobless claims, which is a related but slightly different figure. Some of you may have seen this. These numbers peaked 1982, which was a double-dip recession, 2008, which was a double-dip recession. They were the two highest figures for weekly new jobless claims in the US, around about, I think, 585,000. Week before last in the US, 3.3 million. Absolutely blew it off the chart. And if we can kind of see, there's 1982, which was the record. There's 2008, which got very, very close. And week before last, not even close. The really scary thing is, between me preparing these financial reports and presenting them to you, last week's jobless numbers have come in, and back to back. So this isn't like unemployment stays steady. If you're unemployed, you're still unemployed. It counts as the number. This is new jobless claims. So 2 weeks ago, it was 3.3 million people newly unemployed in America. Last week, 6.6 million. It took a record that was 6 times higher than any week in history and doubled it. So if there's any uncertainty that we are now in a steep recession, then we ought to lay that to rest. The economic saying, of course, is that when the US sneezes, the world catches a cold. I was saying in economic presentations 18 months ago that now we need to look at China. When China sneezes, the world will catch a cold. I didn't realize we were going to take that literally and economically. What's happening in the US right now is extraordinary and will have a massive impact on the rest of the global economy.